Hi YouTube, welcome to another video from HorrorHands with me, the Brinder. And for this video I thought I would talk about my top 20 favourite horror films of all time, which was not an easy list to do because there's literally hundreds of horror films here. So trying to pick just 20 was pretty difficult, and trying to establish what your 16th favourite film is over your 17th is not too easy either. But I've had a good look over the collection, and I've picked out what I'd say are my 20 favourite horror films. There's quite a bit of variety. There's some old stuff, some modern stuff, some obscure stuff, and films that I'm sure you think, why on earth is that in his top 20? But I'll run through these and let me know what you think. So the first movie is VHS. I love VHS 1 and 2. I was very impressed with them. I thought for modern horror films they were very, very effective. They were very scary, very gory, and had a lot of memorable moments in them, which is quite rare for a lot of modern ones. I haven't watched number 3. I heard that one wasn't as good, but maybe you can let me know if number 3 is worth watching. But I really love 1 and 2. The next movie is Paranormal Activity, and I'm kind of holding this one up as a representative for the whole series, because I pretty much love every single one that they've made in this series. I have them all up until Ghost Dimension, which as of doing this video is the most recent one. I particularly like number 2 because they've got the same dog as me, and I also like the 4th one with the teenage girl and the creepy kid that moves in with them. I thought that was a good one as well. But I enjoy every single one of these. I'd even like to see more. I'm not a massive fan of churning out lots and lots of sequels, but I'd actually welcome more Paranormal Activities if they did decide to make them. The next one is a great 80s film, Night of the Creeps, with Tom Atkins. Probably one of his best roles as well. It's like killer parasites come down in a comet and take over people's bodies. It's a great mix of horror and kind of teen comedy. So if you're into your 80s horror and not looking for something too serious, this is a really, really good one to watch. The next one is George Romero's Day of the Dead, and I pretty much like everything that George Romero has done. I love Night of the Living Dead, love Dawn of the Dead, but I'd say it's Day of the Dead that's kind of resonates with me the most. I think it was the first one of his films that I saw, and I saw it when I was very young and was kind of blown away a little bit by the gory mayhem. I also remember feeling quite uncomfortable that the adults in the film, who were like sort of hardened soldiers, couldn't tackle the living dead, which kind of stayed with me and makes the film quite scary. So yeah, and also I just love the gore in it, the drill to the zombie's head and the zombie whose stomachs sort of fall out on the operating table. Yeah, I think Romero did an amazing job with this one. One of his very best. The next film is from one of my favourite directors ever, and it's Deep Red, Dario Argento's film from 1975, which I just love for its artistic merit. It's really good storyline. David Hemmings is awesome in this movie, and I always think Dario Argento was great at doing kind of like violence that in a way was quite arty and quite beautiful, and this film demonstrates that very well. A very, very sort of gripping story as well. It's quite unusual for a horror film to have such a driving kind of storyline that keeps you on the edge of your seat, but Dario Argento does this brilliantly in this film, and it's yeah, it's one that I can watch over and over again and still enjoy. and appreciate for its artistic merit. From one Italian filmmaker to another, and it's Lucio Fulci's City of the Living Dead, which kind of came out at a time when he was seemingly at the height of his career. He was churning out horror films that were just, each one really was awesome, and I just remember particularly liking this one, liking a lot of the gore scenes in it, so like the woman whose guts come out of her mouth and that kind of thing, and the closing scene with the zombies in the tomb, they're on fire, was just absolutely awesome. Plus Christopher George is in this, and you know, he's brilliant in anything that he does, and played a really good part in this. So yeah, City of the Living Dead is another one of my favourites. The next one is The Burning, one of my favourite slasher films. Quite an underrated film, I think. It's obviously very low budget, and it shows, but it's a very well made film, and the gore and the effects in it are fantastic. Tom Savini did a great job of doing the whole fingers being locked off and things like that. I think it's interesting as well that this film has never had a remake or a sequel, which is unusual for any kind of horror film. So it's kind of a nice gimmick for The Burning. That it is a completely standalone film. So yeah, another one that I really like. The next film is a very low budget film, pretty much made in somebody's basement, but I love it, and it's The Deadly Spawn, which is about an alien that kind of grows inside someone's cellar and eats people to get bigger and bigger. Very unconvincing, very sort of rubber puppet effects, but quite gory in places, and for me it's just a film that's got a lot of charm. It's one of my childhood films, and yeah, one that I always enjoy. You can take your brain out and watch this. It's not too much of a taxing film to watch. The next film is one that I spoke about in my last video, and it's Humanoids from the Deep, which, like I say, is not a film that people talk about hardly at all, and I'm not sure why, because as an 80s horror film, it's got everything. It's got everything that you'd want to see. So it's like killer fishmen come out of the sea onto the land to kill people in this little town, and Doug McClure and Dick Morrow have to try and stop them. But it's a highly entertaining, cheesy, low budget, but quite underrated film, I would say. And again, I keep saying it, I don't know why it's not more popular amongst fans of 80s horror films in particular. The next film is The Fog, John Carpenter's The Fog. John Carpenter is my favourite film director, and I think this is one of his very best and most accomplished horror film. I love the scene at the beginning with John Houseman telling the story of the fog and the sailors that got killed. I think that is an amazing scene that's very atmospheric, and yeah, the whole film is just very well made, very creepy, very effective. Yeah, John Carpenter is just the man. He's amazing. The next film is The Harley, Joe Dante's werewolf film, which I've always loved this film. You kind of have this one and American Werewolf in London. They kind of came out around the same time, and American Werewolf is sort of the more popular or critically acclaimed, which is fine because it's an awesome film. But I always tended to prefer this one. I like the setting of this taking place in the woods, and I love the story of the rehabilitation centre being a front for werewolves. I thought that was a really cool story, and yeah, one of my favourite films. Joe Dante as well, who directed this, is a very underrated director. The next film doesn't really need any kind of introduction, but it's the Exorcist, yeah, one of the greatest films made in general. I think it's a kind of a film that's made, seems like a very kind of adult film nowadays. It's not one that appeals to the teenagers, if you know what I mean. It's like a teen horror film. It's a very serious Hollywood horror film made by a director who was really at the top of his game, and what he made here is just such an amazing, scary, still effective, creepy film now. Yeah, there's never kind of been anything, well, there have been films made that are like this, but nothing that's gone to the level of this movie in terms of sort of creativity and scariness and yeah, just sheer good, great filmmaking. So yeah, The Exorcist, one of the best. Next one is Friday the 13th, and kind of like Paranormal Activity, I'm kind of holding this up as a representative of the whole series because I love all the Friday the 13th. I'm holding up part 6 because this is probably my favourite one. Certainly has probably my favourite scene of the series, which is the beginning scene where Jason comes out of the grave after being struck by lightning. That was awesome, but I can watch any of these movies. I love them all. I'd probably say that 1 and 2 are actually my least watched in the series because they've not quite got Jason the way that I like to see him, which is the hockey mask Jason. But yeah, I love them all. And as a teenager, I remember I used to go, there was a video shop down the road, and I used to rent like 1 and 2 one weekend, and then 3 and 4, and then 5 and 6, and then 7 and 8, and that was kind of my weekends as a teenager. I'd go to the video store and rent Friday the 13th and go through the whole series and watch them. So that was exciting times when I was younger. The next movie is Aliens. Again, doesn't need much introduction. Sci-fi horror from James Cameron, and easily my favourite of the Aliens series. I thought Alien was okay. It was a bit slow for me, but a great film. Alien 3, I've grown to like it more over the years. Alien Resurrection, Prometheus, the rest of them are all good films, but for me, Aliens stands head and shoulders above them. I love that James Cameron kind of cranked up the action in this one. It made it much more kind of gung-ho, sort of man against the aliens, and it was just so cool. Bill Paxton as well as Hudson, just amazing, brilliant performance.